I love these technologies because to me, like it's a huge underpinning to reliability. I don't need people to like sit around and babysit these technologies. They're just going to function on their own.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From InterVision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision.
Welcome back to our continuing series, Mythbusters, Cloud, Security, and Innovation. Like the much more famous Mythbusters TV show, we're going to dive into several myths and through interviews, case studies, and data, bust that myth. Follow us over the next several months as we share blogs, infographics, and of course, podcast episodes. On the second Monday of each month, we will interview a peer CIO, CTO, or business owner who has successfully busted the myth. 2 weeks later, we'll hear from an InterVision expert who will further destroy the myth. Of all the myths that we are covering, cloud security, costs, migration, complexity, the myth we are busting today surprises me the most. Believe it or not, there is still a pervasive myth that the cloud is not reliable. Have there been outages? Absolutely. Are they highly publicized? Without a doubt. Today, we are going to dig under the covers a bit and explore the myth, and with our guest, bust the myth. Our guest today is Alejandro Otero, the CTO for NextSpec. NextSpec is leveraging decades of experience in media distribution technology to solve the fundamental challenges of migrating distribution processes to the cloud. Alex, welcome to Status Go, and let's bust that myth.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, Alex. When you and I met, a week or two ago, really enjoyed the conversation, and I know our listeners are going to walk away with several nuggets from your experience. So let's start there. Could you share a little bit about your background and your career journey?
Sure. So I work in the media and entertainment post-production space. Essentially started out during the launch of DVD for home entertainment way back in the day at Sony Pictures. And shortly after that, left to become a partner in a company called Radius 60. And at Radius 60, we were the largest boutique provider of a lot of those home entertainment distribution services, very much focused around DVD and then the upcoming technology of Blu-ray. And then we started to see the advent of the digital supply chain. So the launch of the iTunes Store and Netflix, which we helped to launch. And over the next, decade plus, saw many, many more platforms and online retailers sprouting. And we, again, continue to help facilitate a lot of those distribution challenges for the studios. And in 2016, Radius 60 was acquired to grow into Pixelogic Media, a very large, peer competitor for a lot of the power players in that part of the industry. And I was always interested in the tech side of how to manage things a little more efficiently by creating software and hardware solutions to the scalability challenges that were being presented. Again, this was a little bit different, again, as we started to see the online growth of, consumer consumption of the content that the studios were producing, where now things were starting to go a lot more global. So we hit big scalability challenges. And again, I was interested in how to solve that with, some technology solutions as opposed to throwing more people at the problems. And they're very unique challenges because especially in the M&E space, you're dealing with petabytes of storage often, like just, right from the get-go, you're going to deal with petabytes of storage and then single files that are upwards of a terabyte large. And it is worth mentioning that, COVID actually helped to debunk a lot of the industry's reticence in adopting the cloud. A lot of that existed because of security concerns. And that really opened up a whole new ballgame. And after I realized the opportunities unfolding in the cloud, I joined NextSpec as CTO to help focus on creating cloud-based solutions to a lot of those same challenges.
Well, and I know we're going to get into this here in a few minutes, kind of that difference between on-prem and now working for a company that's born in the cloud. and a little bit about those differences. Tell us a bit about NextSpec, what it does, what products and services you all have, and then, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about the tech stack there at NextSpec.
Sure. So NextSpec is a 2.5 year young company with a mission statement to create scalable cloud-hosted M&E solutions. We offer SaaS services for digital inventory management and also create supply chain workflow automation solutions. Again, everything pretty much cloud hosted. And in addition, we have what I guess could best be described as a skunkworks onboarding team. That might not mean as much to folks that are, less steeped in this part of the supply chain, but really it's just again a team that kind of tackles things in a manual way. Again, so even if it was on-prem or in the cloud, you just want people that kind of understand like what are the processes that you eventually want to scale up and have automations work on, and we view that as being important because it helps us to understand, again, like what are the actual business requirements, not to just charge forward with development, but to manage those business requirements, have a clear understanding of what the automation is supposed to do, what the software is intended to do. And there's no better way to do that than just having, again, somebody do things very manually. And again, the idea is to scale that up quickly. But we feel that if you jump straight to the software solutions, you're going to end up with something that is, it works for some workflows, but not all. So it's a keen focus of ours.
It's kind of that white glove onboarding. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they help to define all those requirements for our software development. And again, like clearly lay out, those user stories and everything else. So again, they're doing a whole mixed role, but like really, their fundamental purpose is to like tackle those challenges the same way you would if you didn't have like a lot of the customized, architected software that existed. And when it comes to our tech stack, that actually, we'll start there. That actually brings its own unique set of challenges because in order to help this onboarding team, they effectively need to be able to function as if they were, sitting in front of a powerhouse editorial workstation, right? So again, like that's the way you do things manually. And, we're cloud agnostic, but truly speaking, most of our clients are AWS centric. So most of our solutions tend to be geared towards AWS, including our SaaS offerings, but at the end of the day, these principles, a lot of them still apply to whichever cloud provider that you're interested in leveraging. And one of our goals, and again, this was particularly challenging given that Skunkworks onboarding team, was to not have any real equipment on-prem. So if you look in our machine room, it's basically just a firewall and a switch. And hosted at the desk spaces, we have like the equivalent of just terminals that are intended to just be a front end into cloud hosted computers. So I guess again we'll start with what we did to facilitate what again I'll call the production environment. And there's a lot of security requirements that are stringent. And for good reason, because if you're working on pre-release content, like movie or episodic content, and it leaks, before it's meant to air or show in theaters, that's, obviously a lot of lost revenue. So, one of the challenges with working in these production environments is that you expect to have like these two separate networks. They're typically called like a corporate network where you're doing like your daily business work, and then what is typically labeled a production network, and we call it a secure network. Where again, like it's, I guess the closest equivalent would be air gapped, meaning that those editorial workstations, they can't communicate aside from communication coming in, they actually can't communicate out. So you can't even like search Google or anything else because you don't want anybody posting a file to Dropbox or whatever else, when they're working on this content. So that in and of itself was an interesting challenge to try to set that up in the cloud. Again, to quickly summarize, we just created two separate VPCs to mirror those same kind of environments in the cloud, and they were connected through to the equivalent on-prem VLANs, right? So inside our production VPC, that's communicating to the production VLAN on-prem where we have like, the terminal or emulate workstations. We're using that technology to remote into those hosted instances. And our production VPC has a storage gateway, like an AWS specific product deployed within there that serves as our NAS or network attached storage. It's backed by S3, so really it's kind of beautiful because it's infinite
Yeah,
storage
yeah.
on our NAS. Um,
Uh-huh.
and we have individual EC2s that serve as our post-production workstations. Again, they're running HP Anywhere, Teradici, for folks that are familiar with the software
Yeah.
solution. And then those Amulet terminals, again, are serving as the front end. So somebody sits down in front of an Amulet, and again, they feel like they're sitting in front of this powerhouse,
Yeah.
beefy, editorial workstation that is really in the cloud, miles and miles away. And again, it's great because using these technologies, they get the benefit of, again, a powerhouse editorial workstation with
Yeah.
storage that meets the most demanding data IO requirements to play back, a UHD file, to edit those, and move that content around. And then the other key thing is that we didn't have to outlay a lot of capital to spin that up, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we put our infrastructure together, but you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars usually just to get those editorial workstations and the amount of storage that would be required to deploy on-prem, and it was very easy to kind of put this together. Well, I take that back. Maybe it wasn't super easy to set it up originally,
Maybe
right?
not easy, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's easy now that it's in practice, right? We went through a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of R&D effort to make sure that everything could be tuned just right to meet. And again, like these are very specific requirements for our industry.
Yeah,
But we wanted to
yeah.
make sure that it could meet those challenges and requirements before we, said like, yep, just the firewall and the switch sitting in the machine or nothing else sitting there. And it also allows us to, again, like meet all the other requirements, meaning that, just physical security. In order to pass,
Yeah.
certain security audits, somebody needs to badge in, go behind yet a second door, go into the secure room, sit down on
Yeah.
that Amulet workstation. So again, they can't access this content, sitting from home through a VPN connection. Like again,
Right.
this has all the same security requirements that you would have if you tried to facilitate this on-prem.
I love that description, Alex, because I know a lot of our listeners, they probably don't work in media and entertainment, but they work in highly regulated environments and have some of those same types of requirements. And this also is a great segue to the myth itself that uh, what we're attacking today is this myth that the cloud is not reliable. Yet you've been able to build this, we'll call it infrastructure, cloud based infrastructure that provides great response time and a feel like you're in front of a beefed up on premises laptop or desktop. Where do you think this whole myth of the cloud's not reliable, where do you think that got started?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to be honest. Like, I guess I'm a little bit of a latecomer to the party because by the time I was a little more heavily steeped in the cloud, this is around 2016. We had certainly had some services and everything deployed in there, but I'd never really heard as much the label applied to it of it being unreliable. But maybe if I could choose a different word,
Yeah.
I would say inconvenient to maybe make reliable. Right?
Ah,
I
okay.
guess is because I do feel like, and maybe I'm mistaken, but that hopefully most people at this point do understand, and maybe this is again why you
You'd
outlined
be
you're a little
surprised.
confused by this. Yeah, there's really not much of an excuse to say that things are unreliable in the cloud, and we can get to some of the specific technologies and what's backing that redundancy or reliability at the end of the day. We didn't even cover the SaaS part of our tech stack, but again, there's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
gamut of stuff that sits behind there. But I can appreciate if somebody says that, I don't know how to make something reliable in the
Oh,
cloud.
yeah, yeah.
And, I can certainly empathize and sympathize with that. And I guess that, the main thing is that the architecture principles to make something reliable, they can be a little more complicated again than you want to deal with or than what you're seeing in the on-prem world. But
Hmm.
the truth is that there's a lot more ways to accomplish that reliability and redundancy in the cloud.
Yeah.
And perhaps sometimes having too many options just creates that paralysis that like you don't know what to
Yeah.
do, right? So you either don't deploy like some of the options that you have, or just kind of stop there because it's just, I've got 10 different things on the table. What's the right choice? Right. And
Yeah.
again, I can appreciate that, but you know, if you're just starting off on your cloud journey, like really that's again why you want a partner. And you know, we use Intervision, but you want someone to break down those options for you in layman terms. And
Right.
the reality is that the choices that you have, there typically isn't a bad choice of what you want to do in order to achieve that reliability or redundancy. But what I can say is that a lot of times there is a best choice for you and your organization,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not going to make a
Yeah.
bad choice if you know, again, follow the principles of how you're intended to architect things in the cloud. But based on your priority, is it the redundancy itself? Is it cost? Like, where is your sliding scale of like where, you know, and again, you do these same evaluations on prem of, you know, how much, you know, how many hot spares do you want to have? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, again, it's a different question, right? Or a different answer to the same question at the end of the day.
Question. Yeah. Yeah.
And you, again, if you don't have that knowledge right now, you know, you can research it, or again, like leverage a partner that has already
Partnered it.
gone through this and
Yeah.
have
That's
them put
learned.
together
Yeah.
for you. So,
Yeah. Well, we're going to pause right there, speaking of partners, and we're going to listen to a short message from Intervision. As our listeners know, Intervision is the publisher of the Status Go podcast.
Unlock the power of more with Intervision Systems. We provide the cutting-edge technology and expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. Don't settle for less. Choose Intervision Systems and discover what's possible. Contact us now to learn more.
And if you do want to learn more, visit intervision.com/myths. There you'll be able to explore some of the other myths that we've busted throughout this series and learn more about this specific myth. Today we're talking with Alex Otero, and Alex is the CTO for NextSpecs. And we've been talking about this myth that the cloud is not reliable. And I love the way he tilted that myth a little bit before break, that maybe it's that you may not know how. It's a little different approach to reliability. And so understanding how to build reliable systems in the cloud can be a little different, and you may need to use a partner or do some study on how to do that. But what I'd like to do now, Alex, getting back into our conversation, is as you've seen this, you started out like many on-prem. You were focused technology infrastructure on-prem, and now you're in a cloud only pretty much environment. What advancements have you seen in the time that you've been involved in cloud that make it more reliant, more resilient?
sure. And I mean, I do think it is worthwhile to mention that again, like even by the time we were, you know, in the cloud playground, there were a lot of good things that already existed. And, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
simple example there is storage, right? Like storage has always been very reliable in the cloud, and it's, you know, easy to take for granted how reliable and redundant it can be because it's just a, you know, standard offering again that
Yeah.
you're getting 3 copies of backups for every file that you put in the cloud. Like again, you know, you don't have to think about it. The moment you put it in the cloud, if you're just choosing a standard tier, you know, you're getting 3 copies of this file. It's spread off across what, you know, in the AWS instance, they would call an availability zone. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just consider that this has been around for quite some time. This is like not even thinking about it, not doing anything. You've got, you know, 2 additional carbon copies to that file that are available just in case something happens without setting up any infrastructure. The moment you turn on your account, upload a file, that happens automatically. And again, like there's plenty that you can do beyond that, and you can choose to actually scale that down if you want a less costly, you know, option to say, I only want that content in one availability zone. You know, a lot of this goes to how many nines you want to pay for of
Yeah.
redundancy or reliability. Um, and you can go to the other end of the spectrum and say, you know, an availability zone is all within, you know, one region. Like, yeah, each one of those warehouses is a few miles apart, but like I want my other stuff on the other side of the continent or another continent
Yeah.
entirely. Again, there's easy tools that have been around for quite some time that allow you to do that kind of redundancy without
Yeah.
too much effort and setup. But I think when we talk about newer things that have become more popular since again we started our cloud journey, um, I'm a big fan of serverless technologies, managed services
Ah,
as well. But you know, with these technologies, like you pay, a little bit of a premium, but it's not really too much to have a lot of the intensive IT functions of like managing patching, monitoring availability, like taking fine control of like how the architecture scales. And again, like this goes underneath the hood, a lot of this goes to reliability. Like something broke down because this didn't scale up, or something broke down because we didn't patch that. Like again, like you have to realize that that reliability isn't just about like an internet cable got cut. It's about like
right,
all
right.
the standard things that you're going to have to do within an on-prem world. That still
Yes.
applies in the cloud. And again, you have so many more options. And again, this is why I love the serverless side, because there's a significant investment to set things up. But after setting things up, if you don't have to worry about that constant maintenance and, the post
Mhm.
deployment, like just monitoring of everything, if you are able to offload that and, the cost is worth it. And usually it's a really good trade off. It's again, something you want to
Mhm.
consider. You know, it becomes very worthwhile. And again, without having to think about it the same way that I was discussing on the storage side for S3, you don't even think about it. This just comes out of the box. There's a
Box.
lot of
Yeah.
new serverless technologies and managed services that have been existing that allow you to, again, focus on like the what you're providing as opposed to
Hmm.
how you're providing it. And
Yeah.
we've also found that helped a lot of our resources to not have to again become super deep subject matter experts in all these specific technologies. Again, like they can help focus on the what we're doing as opposed to how we're doing it by
Yeah.
letting those managed services or other technologies again just offload the day-to-day responsibilities that would take several people to manage. And I kind of liken it to a wizard approach, right? That you can just kind of have the wizard go in, set some stuff up, and then it just kind of it'll let you know if anything crazy is going on. But for the most part, you
Yeah.
just kind of set it and forget it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it's worth mentioning, again, I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and because the argument that I hear against some of these options, and I absolutely understand, is a lot of those specific technologies give you a little more of what we'll call vendor lock, meaning that like, well, that's specific to that cloud provider. So if I
Hmm.
deploy that technology, that means that I'm stuck in their stack, and if I want to migrate over to someone else, like now I have to re-architect everything, and that's correct. Like
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
valid. And I just, we always ask ourselves, well, when is the next time that we would even consider a migration, right? Is that
Right.
like
Right.
1 year away, 3 years away, 5 years away? Again, because if you're in the 3 to 5 year range, like that probably should be in your toolkit, and
But yeah. Yeah.
and it's one of those things that again I appreciate the sentiment behind not having that vendor lock, but we love to be able to move fast, and there's times that it's
Yeah.
not appropriate, and other times that it is, that it just allows us to say, again, we can build this really quickly, and more importantly, one of the things that it's just the ugly truth in the development world. Once you release something to production, you're all of a sudden carving off a certain amount of development time for maintenance, right? Of just
Yes.
maintaining that, and then that eats away at
Uh-huh.
how much new development that you can do. And I like to
Yeah.
keep as much of that bandwidth available to the new development that our teams want
The
to
new
focus
stuff.
on, as opposed to maintaining additional infrastructure. And so that's why, again, like I love these technologies, because to me, like it's a huge underpinning to reliability. I don't need people
Yeah.
to like sit around and babysit these technologies. They're just going to function on their own.
You want them to do the more value add. So when we talk about reliability, we're not saying that there's never disruption, there's never possible downtime. How do the cloud providers, you mentioned you are mostly in AWS, but it sounds like you're also maybe in Azure, maybe Google Compute as well. How do they handle potential downtime or even the unexpected service disruption?
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's worthwhile to circle back to something you brought up at the beginning of our conversation that you do have, and it's once in a blue moon that like big outage, that happens and it's
Mhm.
publicized and everybody knows, and hey,
Yeah.
Instagram's down or or whatever it is. But
Right, right.
in a certain way, like I feel like that has the fact that it becomes so widespread and newsworthy makes it almost a force majeure because evidence,
Uh-huh.
well, the cloud provider's down or somebody cut this cable in the Atlantic or something, and that's what's going on.
Yes,
And
yes.
they just have to
Yeah.
fix it. And most of our clients are dealing with the same exact problem of like this part of their infrastructure got cut off.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's a lot more understanding when something like that happens. But again,
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
is a rarity of this kind of stuff happening.
Mhm.
And the service providers are always very quick to act, bringing that back
Yeah.
online because obviously there's huge impact to a huge customer base. It's not like it's just that is dealing with this
Yeah.
issue. So there's an urgent need to get this fixed, which works to your benefit. That now, again, it's not just, five people in a machine room trying to figure this out. You've got probably 1,000 people trying to like
Yeah.
sort out whatever it is that's going on to get your systems back online at that point. And I think that there's still plenty of other situations where there's managed downtimes, meaning that the cloud provider is letting you know we expect to perform maintenance at these times, so there will be a
Oh
service
yeah.
disruption. And again, I view this as a good thing. One of the neatest things that we observe is that when we start to deploy our cloud infrastructure using the tools that they provide, every time we deploy an instance or a serverless technology or whatever it's going to be, even certain software solutions, the operating system, through the tools that they're giving to us, you're getting the benefit of a free like warranty registration card, right? Like how often do your teams actually fill out that like registration card
Yeah.
afterwards
Yeah.
to get the notification from a vendor to say, hey, this patch is available or this or that. So for everything that you deploy using your tools, now the cloud provider is typically sending you a notification to say, you have this expected patch that is going to be applied or should be applied. In case you're fully managing it, they still know, right? So in a managed service, they're going to patch it for you. If you deployed it on your own, they still have your warranty registration to kind of say, hey, we know you installed this. You should probably update it by this date because it's going to reach this end of life. And by the way,
Yeah.
if you hit that end of life, it might impact you in this way of X, Y, and Z. You've got proactive notifications letting you know
Yeah.
exactly what's going to happen. And in other cases, as mentioned, when they're going to patch it for you to plan ahead for those managed downtimes. So again, I see it as a pretty neat benefit that
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what people would a lot of times forget to do on their own and like monitor to see
It's an
proactively. Like,
extra set of eyes
yeah,
watching it, right? Yeah.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
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 And then, you have a host of other options as well from the cloud providers where they have services that, again, will proactively monitor your infrastructure and environment. There's a lot of great third-party choices there too, that will go in and monitor the environment as well. But I think that we've had pretty good experiences on that time. There's been a handful of times where I don't even want to call it a service disruption. It's just it's almost again a bug that is found in
Yeah.
a certain part of it, the technology stack that's deployed, and we just reach out through the regular support channels and open that
Hmm.
report. And again, I have to say that the support that we receive is extremely responsive, right? So they're getting back to us right away, asking us for more details if additional information is required. So again, usually those disruptions are minimized like when they do occur, or again, like we're planning ahead of time because they're letting us know there's an anticipated downtime for maintenance. So,
Yeah. Yeah. When businesses that are out there that are thinking about moving more and more to the cloud, what steps can they take, in your opinion, to choose a reliable cloud provider? Or are they all pretty much on par anymore?
yeah, I mean, I think at this point, any of the majors are going to be a reliable provider, at the end of the day for everything. And obviously, look look at the details and if there's specific things that you're looking to leverage in the cloud, you might want to do a little bit more research. But especially for like the kind of common set of solutions that you expect. Like all of the majors are going to be, pretty reliable at this stage. And then you have some specialty providers, like storage is a good instance. There's a lot of smaller players coming on the field for storage and things like that. And again, like I would argue that many of them still have great reliability metrics. But again,
Mhm.
all you have to do is take their data and compare it against what one of the majors would have and say, like, is that as many nines as I want? But the
Yeah.
data's all
Yeah.
there. It's publicized, and I think that you can't really make a bad choice. It just depends on what you want to do. And again, I'll circle back
Mhm.
to just I'd recommend to have a trusted partner, helping you plot your course if you haven't started this journey. There's a lot of ways to achieve that reliability, but someone helping you by just saying what your needs are will help you sort through the information and uncover that best option. Like I said, there's often not wrong options, but there's typically a best or right option for your particular use case. And Intervision or any other trusted partner can help boil that down and just give you the pros and cons, right? So you can make the
Cut
executive
through it.
decision of
Mhm.
what either cloud provider to go with or service to go with. Again, like that goes across the board, I think.
Yeah. Alex, we've come to that point in time where it's time to bust the myth. So when you get off work today and you go, maybe you stop by the pub on the way home and you're talking with an IT peer, and they told you they were not leveraging the cloud because it is not reliable. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I have to say, because I don't often hear this, I mean, for me, the answer is pretty simple. I would just say prove it, right? Like, I
Ah,
think a
ah,
lot of those myths just come from hearsay. And, they
yeah,
spoke
yeah,
to someone that had a bad experience or perhaps tried to do too much on their own as they were just getting started on their cloud journey. They might not have a staff that is, well versed in the options that are out there because maybe they've dealt with the on-prem. But again, I'm just going to circle back to this. Like that's when you make a choice to, leverage the right, trusted party to help you out to make those decisions. But I can't imagine that there is a use case that somebody could bring to me to say, here's the data here on why this,
yeah,
is unreliable. Where again, like at the very least, if you have the data, you couldn't debunk it and to just say, well, that's because, your load balancer was, properly configured. Like it has to do with
yeah,
configuration and the choices made and execution as opposed to the cloud itself, which again, you can make those same mistakes in an on-prem environment. And you
right.
just have more choices about how to achieve that reliability in the cloud. Don't let that paralyze you.
Yeah, I love that. Prove it. Show me the data that backs up your assertion that it's not reliable. Well, Alex, here on Status Go, we are all about action, and we want to make sure that we leave our listeners with one or two things that they can go and do tomorrow because they listened to us today. So, what would you recommend them go do as they're on their cloud journey?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on where you are in that cloud journey. If you're already in there, I would recommend, as I mentioned earlier, I love serverless and managed services offered by some of the cloud providers. So I'd recommend taking a look at how much you spend on maintenance and, on deploying some of those solutions, the, IT needs to effectively monitor them, and maintain them. And take a look to see if the managed service or serverless options make sense for you so that you can deploy those
Yeah,
resources on again more growth or other things like that
yeah,
as opposed to just keeping the machine running, because again there's many ways to achieve that reliability and redundancy.
yeah,
So it's worthwhile to take stock with those newer technologies that are available there, and there's new ones across different products that are constantly launching. So keeping abreast of that is definitely important. If you're not in the cloud, there's always barriers to that journey. Um, but here, I just recommend that look at some of the programs that the cloud providers offer to help facilitate a migration, and that's because a lot of times there's incentives to help ease a transition to move your on-prem footprint into the cloud. But the more important part of that is those incentives usually come with pairing you with a partner that again understands how to do that
yeah,
migration, how to achieve the security that you want, the cost that you want, the reliability and redundancy that you want. So again, the cloud providers are keen to help you move into there. So take advantage of that.
yeah. I love those actions because no matter where you are on your cloud journey, that gives people a next step to go look into. And as you were talking about serverless, I was thinking to myself, well, gosh, that could make a whole episode talking about the serverless options that are out there, because I don't think that's anything we've covered specifically here on Status Go. So, mental note, well, we may have you back, Alex, to talk about serverless technology. I really want to thank you for carving out time and talking with us. I know in the midst of a two and a half year old company, probably in startup scale up mode, you're probably burning the candle at both ends already. So I appreciate you jumping on the program with us today, Alex. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and always exciting to talk about what's going on in the cloud.
Well, there you have it. Another myth busted. To our listeners, if you have a question or want to learn more, visit intervision.com/myths. That's MYTHS. To review the show notes, go to intervision.com/status-go. The show notes will provide links and contact information. This is Jeff Tunn for Alex Otero. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Status Go podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.